few misconceptions can arise from the documented understanding of the economic problem. As we have considered, the basic economic problem arises from unlimited wants and scarce resources. Another base concept to be understood in economics after that is the concept of economic efficiency. Efficiency is always thought to be desirable, representing the best solution possible for a given set of inputs. Economic efficiency is a two-part thought process. Firstly, encompassing productive efficiency, and secondly, perhaps arguably the most important by some theorists, allocatively efficient. Productive efficiency occurs with the least use of factor inputs. Can you think back? I understand that you're going to use the lecture series that I've provided as intricate or as separate in each different section as you will see fit. And that's the way they're being designed. But can you remember back if you did it to the section on factor inputs, where we have land, labour, capital and enterprise? Each of these occurs in productive efficiency for goods and services produced with the least amount of costs of production as available as possible. Allocative efficiency requires the most desirable batch of goods and services to be produced, leading to the greatest satisfaction feasible towards those infinite wants and needs being provided for. Only when coincidence of these two definitions occurs can we be deemed to have the best possible use of scarce resources. This situation is said to constitute optimum allocation of resources. In addition, economics can look at economic efficiency at a global or local perspective. When looking at a global perspective, this is achieved when all economies are using their resources in the best possible way. Protectionist policies, for example, may mean this is unlikely or even impossible in certain industries. For example, the timber industry. With a little over 1/5 of the world's forests intact as this primary resource has severe negative externalities associated with its consumption. The primary areas of deforestation being linked to areas of unique ecological complexity and outstanding natural beauty. However, this is overlooked by large multinational or global industries, who arguably control through monopoly power the sale price and supply of quality pulp to the whole market. I'd like to now discuss productive efficiency a little bit more in detail. For productive efficiency to exist, we must be in a situation with the least possible resources or incurring the lowest possible costs of production. Conventionally, this is shown to be reflected in a graphical illustration of the firm's production cost curves. There are two parts to the lowest costs of production: the lowest available production possibility curve and the curve selected for use. The lowest available production curve must be the curve selected for use. Secondly, production given the above, or rather given the lowest possible production curve, must occur on the lowest point of the chosen production cost curve. This is known as technical efficiency. Given that on a production possibility frontier, the two combinations of goods are shown at their maximum possibilities within an economy, true productive efficiency can only exist in a competitive market. As firms must succeed or die, failure to produce at lowest cost will lead to a lower than average demand and therefore lower profit. Competition in a perfectly competitive market, we'll come to this in a section on the theory of the firm, will drive a firm to long-run equilibrium production at the lowest point on its long-run average cost curve. Please don't worry if you don't understand some of these terms at this point. We will be coming to them in detail shortly in other sections. Until you're so familiar with them, they'll just roll off your tongue like it is mine. As we've discussed, driving a firm to its long-run equilibrium production at the lowest point on its long-run average cost curve implies technical efficiency. Also, for the cost curve to be long-run, it must also be on the lowest available curve, and therefore productive efficiency occurs here also. Now, if we move on to allocative efficiency, for allocative efficiency to be attained in an economy or company or government, they must be producing the right products. They must be allocating the right resources to the correct production, this being that they will yield the greatest satisfaction of consumer wants. This is theoretically represented by production occurring up to and including the point where markets have the price of a product equaling its marginal cost. Marginal cost is represented by the letters MC in most economic theory that you'll come across. So we say that it's theoretically represented by production occurring up to and including the point where the markets have the price of a product equaling its marginal cost of production. Since in a competitive market, law of supply and demand dictate that a normal product, again something we will come to in a short while, all of economic theory interrelates, so please bear with me, being available lowers scarcity and therefore lowers its overall perceived value. We will end up with a lower overall price charged per unit output. We're said to have the equation MC equals MR, assuming a competitive market for a normal good. And that's the golden economic equation in microeconomics for a rational firm or a rational individual. The marginal costs and the marginal revenue of a producer or a consumer or individual trying to satisfy itself in terms of producing a set type of output or consuming a set type of output. It will always do so until the marginal cost equals the satisfaction it receives in terms of revenue or utility from that product. Unlike productive efficiency, it's not possible to illustrate allocative efficiency on a production frontier. Any other point on the frontier could be such a point, the exact location being an illustration of a consumer preference and therefore is outside the scope of this illustration. Productive efficiency and perfectly competitive firm behaving in a market setting. The equilibrium point being the intersection of price and output. The marginal revenue is there denoting that something we will come to in a short while. The average revenue equals the marginal revenue. The marginal revenue is only, as we've said, a rational individual's way of saying how much they will consume or produce, and they'll only produce as much as they're covering their costs. So as a consequence of that, it's rational only to produce at the price donated where the marginal revenue equals the quantity that they can get, or to produce a quantity that equates to the price that they can get. And the price inside of a perfectly competitive market, which we will come to, is always or almost always uniform at MC equaling MR. The suggestion is made that the fully perfectly competitive market, there will be economic efficiency, both productive and allocative, existing simultaneously in the same market. And because of that, from an economist's perspective, perfect competition, from a rational perspective inside a market economy, perfectly competitive industries illustrate both efficiencies and are therefore the highest form of market. That's all we're going to cover on this module. Congratulations, you've achieved the end of the section. I hope you can join us in the next section, where we'll be talking about the price system and the theory of the firm, starting with demand and supply.